Welcome to the ObstacleDominator.com podcast featuring Benny Gifford and Brakken Crocker. Whether you want to dominate your next obstacle race or just get started in obstacle racing, you're about to discover every tactic you need to know, from gear to training to nutrition. Get the latest tips from the trenches, get your questions answered, and show up at your next obstacle race ready to dominate. And now, here's Benny and Brakken.
Obstacle Dominator Nation, we're back, we're live, and we're going to dive right into it, Benny Gifford. Dive right in.
I will kill you.
We had an interview lined up all set to streamline this all towards Big Bear, and unfortunately with time zone differences and scheduling problems, the interview fell through, so we are no longer doing a Big Bear prep. So for those of you turning in to listen about Big Bear, go elsewhere. Instead, we're bringing you a rarefied air type of podcast. We are bringing back Corinna Coffin. Corinna has made a reappearance onto the OCR scene just this past week after a 2.5-year downtime, a layoff from Spartan race. She's back. She took a podium, and stay tuned for a little creepiness as the story unfolds that Benny was saying a few things about Corinna, unbeknownst to him, someone she knew was right next to him. So this is going to be a pretty awesome podcast, and I can't wait to dive into it. Dive in, Benny.
Someone she knew that happens to be her boyfriend. So that was, it's like, what are the chances that he happens to be standing right next to me and I don't know who he is, and he's never done an obstacle race in his life, and this happens to be the moment that I say something like this. So that was pretty fortuitous. Corinna Coffin, for any of you who don't know, you must be pretty new to the sport, because before her injury, she was dominant. She, even in the past couple of years, she popped in the TMX scene, cleaned house the first year, was narrowly beaten out in the second one. She's been on the Spartan World Championships podium. She is she's definitely one of the leading names in the old-gaurd and has stuck around in the high-intensity stuff. So it was a great chat. And I think one of the more smooth female interviews we've had. Sometimes they're hit or miss on the girls. I don't know. It's definitely been better since we have Brakken. I don't know what it is about Hunter, but he brings out these awkward flows of conversation when we have the girls on. But I think Corinna was I don't know. How'd you think it went? I think it went great.
I'm like talking to your dad or your uncle. There's no tension here. You don't have to worry about anything.
Just, is that no sexual tension? But Hunter just brings that out of everybody?
Must be.
Cool. All right. Well, this is episode 13. I'm pretty sure, Brakken, right? 13?
Lucky number 13. That'll play out in this episode.
Oh my God, you're right. Holy cow, that's crazy. No, I really hope it is 13. And if it's not, we're going to go back and post and delete the previous episode just so.
If I were a betting man, I'd say it's 12, but I've been wrong every time about what episode we're on.
Oh man, I really hope it's 13. If not, we will literally skip 12 just to make sure this is 13. All right, folks. So without further ado, I bid you adieu and let's take off.
Dive in.
I hate you. Corinna freaking Coffin. It has been forever since we've seen you in the sport or kind of doing anything other than CrossFit. So what you showed up in DC and kicked ass, and then I just heard that you're showing up to AT&T. So what's going on? Are you coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I have taken quite a hiatus from the Spartan racing. I think it's been 2.5 years, because I'm pretty sure the last Spartan race I did was Breckenridge in 2016. So it's been a long time.
And that's where you got pretty messed up during that race.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was that's when I got the stitches on. Like, I fell downhill, hit my knee. Orla came to my rescue, and that took me out for a good chunk of time. And then I got into CrossFit, and so it's been really fun, kind of juggling the different sports. And I got to compete at regionals with a team for CrossFit, and then we qualified for the games. So I got to compete in Madison last August. So it was really cool to be able to kind of dip back into kind of focus more on CrossFit and then take it to that next level. But I've missed kind of the endurance aspect of everything I was doing beforehand. And so it was kind of like, for me, I'm ready to step back a little bit into OCR a little bit more. I've missed it. So
how good does it feel to be able to sit back and watch this whole get Hunter to the games and just think, I already did that. Like, you have this whole like crowdsourced funding campaign to even get you on their radar, and I'm already a games veteran.
Oh yeah. I mean, what Hunter's trying to do is,
don't give him credit. Don't do stuff like that. That's a dangerous precedent.
He talks a lot of smack. And so I think that's part of his, it's part of his strategy with like, maybe getting a spot to go is everyone's like, he talks all this shit and there's no way he could outperform so-and-so. And then they're like, well, let's just see. And so
yep.
I think he's got more of a strategy behind it than just being a loud mouth that he is kind of,
he gets it. It sells, like they always say in like combat sports, it sells fights. Yeah. No one wants to show up to see two really respectful people like trade shots. They're interested to see the guy who ran his mouth get knocked out. And that's what they want to see happen with Hunter. And that's why I believe it's going to work out.
Yeah. I didn't even know that they were going to give away wild card spots this year. Cause I know in the past, I don't even know if they'd done that in the past, and maybe there was rumor about it. And then, so I actually didn't follow that, but, all of a sudden I saw him doing all those social media stuff to get him to the game. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Did you see that interview he had with, who's the guy who runs the game? Not Castro. Who's the other one?
Glassman. Like
what'd you say, Brakken?
Glassman.
Yeah. So he just had an interview, I think with Glassman. It was on YouTube. He's in, like he's totally in. He's got the wild card spot. If you go watch that interview, he's freaking in, which honestly, I'm ridiculously excited about this because I'm not in CrossFit, but I've watched the games and stuff like that. It doesn't make me an expert or anything, but I want to hear your opinion, Corinna, because it's like, if he doesn't have to swing so far to the heavy lifting that he had to for regionals to qualify, and he can just focus on the events of the games, I mean, he's definitely going to absolutely wreck shop. Like out of the races or the events last year, he would have hands down destroyed and won like a handful of them. Now, who knows if they're going to adjust it because Hunter's here and they're like, we're not going to let this guy come in and whatever. But from your viewpoint, as somebody who's done OCR, who knows CrossFit really well now, and who knows Hunter's physical capabilities really well, how do you think he's going to pan out not having to mess with regionals and just go straight to the games?
Yeah, that is helpful because, regionals always looks very different from the game. So, you eliminate that altogether. There's definitely some endurance. I think, the history of the games, they like to throw in some kind of more obstacle-esque type events like you've seen in the past with the triathlon and then like that hill scramble and then, just odd object, moving odd objects. And I think Hunter will do really well in that. And, he showed that, he can do anything from a Spartan World Championship that's, 13 plus miles all the way to Tough Mudder X. That's, short course, really fast, sprint style race. So I think he's got that covered. Like you said, I think with the weight, like I've seen his videos, it's not that pretty, like, with his Olympic lifting, but props to him, right? I mean, like that stuff takes a lot of time, and practice. And so that's not something that you can build as easily. So I think that's going to be what hurts him at the games if he were to go. But I think there's a lot of things that just his engine alone could, really be good at. So like I said, I'm with you there. It's going to be really entertaining if he gets that wild card.
He's going to be perfect for them because he will win. If they don't change the format, he will win 3 or 4 events and he will take dead last in like 6 or 8 events. And he's going to be like he's going to run his mouth and then he's going to be just the whipping boy for a couple of events where he won't move like minimum required weight because he just can't. But he's going to destroy them and let them know about it in a few of the events.
Yeah. I don't know anyone else who's going out for the wild card. And like, if they are, they're definitely not doing it like Hunter is. So Beni, like you said, he probably has it in the bag, especially if he's been speaking to Glassman. And I also don't know how many people they're going to take. Did they announce like how many wild cards? Is it just one?
I don't know.
I thought I heard 4. The numbers I heard were 4 or 6, but I think it's last I heard was 4.
Okay.
None of the wild cards will do well overall in the games, but they'll all be brought in to provide like a shot of life in the arm of CrossFit. Yeah. And that's what he's perfect at. Yeah. So back to you. Enough of Hunter. He gets enough fanfare around this place. When I first met you, do you remember back when we met, 2013 probably? It would have been Killington, the World Championships.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2014?
Yeah.
2014. Yeah.
That was my first. That was my first World Championship.
Yeah. So that was one of your first Spartan races, correct?
That was I had just started competing in them that summer. So I think I did 3 races before.
Yeah. So the first time the world saw you was at the Spartan Race World Championships in 2014. And that was like a 16-mile year or something like that.
It was like, it was at least 15.
And then you go on a hiatus and you come back to a stadium race after CrossFit. And it's funny because you were known, at least people thought you were known as like that grinded out long distance mountain racer. And then you reinvented yourself. Was that a reinvention of you, or was that getting back to who you always were as an athlete?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that was totally like the 8 to 12 mile races. And then, sometimes even the longer ones, like those were my, bread and butter. And I would never, I would dread the short course, or I would kind of avoid like the sprints because I just didn't have that kind of sprint capacity. But I will say that was probably, I had been training CrossFit a little bit less than a year at that point in time. And so I think through changing my training and adopting more of a CrossFit methodology, I was able to learn to push like closer to that 100% like sprint pace. And so, now I'm in this really weird in between of like, still feeling like more of a steady state, slower, but, endurance type athlete, but then also like trying to tap into the sprint style races because I don't have the same endurance and like aerobic endurance and capacity to like run longer races that I did, several years ago. And then I'm kind of like training more towards like faster, explosive style sprinting and movement. So yeah, it's an odd transition. I don't really know what. I don't know. I just think it's weird to be able to do both, but of course it developed over a period of time and changed with my training. But right now I'm a little bit stuck in the in between and not sure where I want to take it. Like, do I want to keep getting faster and keep going, the CrossFit route and just working on explosivity and sprint pace, or get back to my roots of like an endurance athlete?
So what's the intent with the stadium appearances? Is it to feel that out and see it, to help you make that decision of like, hey, I'm really liking this and really excelling at this. I kind of want to go more this route. Do you plan on popping into any of the US series races that get you back out into the mountains or, just outdoors, or is it just stadium?
Yeah, I think so started with longer OCRs and then it transitioned with more CrossFit. Like the past couple of years, like Tough Mudder X was a really cool combination of OCR and CrossFit. And that was perfect. It was 1 mile, still required endurance. Like obviously the solely CrossFitters didn't necessarily do the best job, at least, the first year in that. So TMX was a cool combination of the two that I really enjoyed. And then so like the next step from there was like, well, why not try stadium? It's similar to TMX. Obviously you don't have the quite as intensive of like the weight and the rep schemes and everything. But it was closer to that short course race style that I figured, might not be a totally bad idea to transition from that to the other. As for like the US series, like with the longer races, I know, like I'm just having raced Lindsay and Nicole and all that, like they totally outrun me. Like there's no way I could hold a candle to them right now in like longer distance racing. So kind of just knowing who I'm up against too. Like I know Cassidy and she's not really on the scene this year, but like, with Orla, I know her training's a little bit more similar to mine. Whereas like Rhea, Nicole, Lindsay, like they're running predominantly and maybe a little bit of strength training that's mostly combined with climbing. So I just know like my competition and, I'd like to get into the longer courses eventually because I do enjoy running and doing longer distance stuff. But just from a competition standpoint, I think stadium, where I'm at right now, stadium fits my training.
So are you doing all the stadiums for the rest of the year?
For the rest of the year, that's my plan. I had to miss the first one because I'm in grad school or just graduated.
Congratulations.
And I had a training. Thank you. Yeah, I had a training that I couldn't miss. So I had to miss the first one. So I won't be in the points or eligible for the points series, but I do plan to do the rest.
Just mess up the point series like VJ.
What did he do? Did he miss one, but then?
Yeah, he decided not to show up for the first one. I don't remember if it was a decision or he just wasn't feeling very good, but he didn't show up for the first, so he was out. And then there's a quote of him just saying, I can't win, but I can definitely mess with everybody's points.
Yeah.
And he's definitely doing that.
Well, I was talking with Brakken, like the way the points are this year, I wasn't sure. And again, like this is not my intent, but I don't know if, if you do well, or if I do well in the next 4, I don't know if there's any chance to like make up some points and still
go top 3 for sure.
What?
5 second places beat 4 seconds beat 5 thirds.
Oh, really?
I believe.
But essentially,
they beat 5 fourths.
But if you miss a race, you're technically out, right?
Nope. No, there's not a mandatory number of races. It's just that all points count.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you miss a race, you're theoretically out. But if you win 4 and miss 1, you're going to have more points than someone who took 5 thirds.
Gotcha. That's
wow.
cool.
Okay. I thought it was literally a hard rule that if you miss 1, you can't qualify and you can't even be in it. I did not know that. Okay, cool.
No, they made the point so that it would be very difficult to miss one, but they left enough room in them trying to make it fair so that 5/5 doesn't beat someone who, has like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 20th.
Sure.
Which is cool.
But because of that left the door open for someone to win or go top 3 in 4 of them, not show up to a 5th and still go top 3 to top 5 in the series.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like VJ right now is right back up in it. He's top 10 in the series despite missing one because of the 20 to 30 point gap between each of the top 4 places. Sure. Now, I don't think he's doing Big Bear. He might be, but I know he's not going after the series, so who knows?
Gotcha. Question with the stadiums. So is it Fenway? So like after Dallas, which is in June.
It's the big question.
Then it's like, is it Fenway and then San Fran both in the month of November? Or is it like still hazy? Because I feel like on the Spartan website, it's not really clear.
Still hazy. They originally said there were going to be 5, and then they keep saying there's going to be 5, but there's only 4 listed. And then they put out an Instagram post showing the new AT&T Park is now Oracle Park out in San Fran.
Yeah.
And they used the updated name and everything. And so everyone's like, all right, it's on. And then the next morning it was down.
Oh.
And they removed the post and everything. So I don't know if someone was late night drunk posting or what happened, but or if it just leaked early, if there's a miscommunication. But we still don't have a 5th.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that like you have this huge gap from June to November where you just don't have any stadium races. It seems weird to me.
April to November is a 5-race series. It's ridiculous.
Huh. That's
very, very strange.
Anyway, you'd think that they'd space it out like, a little bit more if it was going to be that way.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're expecting for people to maintain interest in the series when it's across an entire year. We've got 5 freaking races and they don't even do live coverage of it. So it's like, maybe this year they're just like really trying to nail down a process. And then next year they'll start doing live coverage and actually having it be consistent, but who freaking knows?
Yeah.
Well, short course is always at the gets the short end of the stick with obstacle course racing. The people who have tried it in the past, I think you did Extreme Nation, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No, what's
you didn't do Extreme Nation?
No.
I thought you were with Cloud and them. It was a one-off race. Anyone who's put TMX, I'm sure that was a huge blow to your season, banking on that type of race to hit your skill set. All of those either go under or kind of get pushed to the side. And as of right now, the Stadium Series is just clearly a second-class citizen to the U.S. Series. But even the Mountain Series and the Honor Series, you don't hear anything about those. Did you guys know that the Honor Series had a stop in D.C. the same day we were there?
What?
Our points count for both. Honor Series is anything that's at all military related. So D.C. is nation's capital, so they counted it as part of the Honor Series. So that was a U.S. Stadium Series race and part of the Honor Series point series. But were any of you aware of it?
No. Huh.
Did they even announce anything like with podiums or anything?
No. I don't.
No. So anyways, like that shows how much they put into it.
Yeah.
With that being kind of your home area, can you please explain to me? That's the first time I've ever been to DC, and I was like, Google Maps just said, "Welcome to the District of Columbia," and then my address was in not Virginia, some other state, and there was like a third. Yeah, Maryland, and I was like, "Wait, where the hell am I?"
Did you skip this section? when you were in like 4th grade?
Dude, I was homeschooled. We skipped everything.
Okay, that's a fair excuse.
Yeah. So technically, the District of Columbia is not in. It's a district. It's not a state. So it's not in Virginia. It's not in Maryland or Delaware. It's just its own district
Because what? Like, what does that even mean?
Brakken, do you know what?
It's just a standalone entity. It's kind of like the Vatican or anything else. It has its own lines. It's part of nothing. It's independent. It's the country's capital, and so it's not a part of any other state. So it's not bound or subject to any of their regulations or rules.
That sounds pretty cool.
Benny. Never stop learning.
Yeah, well, I won't. I'll be the guy who doesn't matter if everybody makes fun of him. I'll ask the damn question.
And it's not the only reason, but if it was a part of another state, it would be bound by any of those state statutes, and it could then be influenced or any way compromised by anything that's going on in that state. It can't be associated with one state over the other. Otherwise, it would give that state an unfair advantage in the nation.
All right.
There's other reasons, of course, but
you can tell you're a teacher, Brakken.
I'm not.
You have been a teacher.
In the past. My license lapsed. I can't even go back.
I don't want your baldness there anymore. Okay, so Corinna, so you are coming from the CrossFit realm. You primarily did the team events, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was all team. I individually in CrossFit, no chance. Like, I'm just being realistic. Like, that's I know my capabilities and my lack of capabilities. So yeah, it was definitely a team effort.
I got you. So earlier you were talking about it was after your injury that you kind of fell into CrossFit. Was that just kind of I can't really run that much, so I'm going to start lifting, and oh, hey, I'm pretty good at CrossFit, so I'll do that. And now you're just trying to find the middle ground, or, I don't know. I guess that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like ever since I started CrossFit, it was always a training method for obstacle course racing. So I never got to really see where I could get just through CrossFit alone. Like, all of the workouts were, lighter weight, more, just more aerobic, longer duration, just to help me prepare for the obstacle course races. And so when I got injured, it was I knew I was done for the end of the obstacle course racing season. And, most of the times you see athletes kind of develop their base strength in the winter anyway, since that's kind of the off season. So I recently moved to Boulder, Colorado, joined a really cool gym there and was coaching. Or wanted to coach there. And so, yeah, I just kind of immersed myself in that community, started, paying more attention, spending more time on just CrossFit specific stuff, the Olympic lifting, the weightlifting that I kind of always put off to the side because it wasn't really contributing towards my OCR training. And yeah, I wouldn't say the progress was overnight, but I definitely, like, all of a sudden was like, wow, I'm improving a lot. Like, it was just week after week, month after month. It was always just like, a lot of progress. So, then we had some really awesome people at my gym, and we all formed a team and made it to regionals. And so then it kind of went from there, but I had so much fun with it. And I think at that time, I'd been on the Battlefrog Pro team in that second year.
Battlefrog.
It was like ages ago, honestly. But like, they were going under, so I didn't really know what the next year's season looked like for me from a race perspective. And, I raced so many races in those 2 years, like just being with Battlefrog, like kind of ready to be like, hey, I want to put that to the side and kind of pursue this CrossFit thing and, see where I can go with it. So I think that was more of the transition, and it was fun for me. And I finally felt like I wasn't under any pressure, contractual obligations to like stick to a racing schedule. And it was so nice to be like March and not have anything on the slate for race wise. So yeah, that was definitely like.
How'd you feel during DC? I mean, obviously you did great. You ended up in second place. Take us through the race, because this is like your first OCR back, and it must have been kind of like who knows? We'll see. I know I can redline, but we'll see how this goes. So take us through the race.
Well, and like, I wrote this on my Instagram post, but I was thinking about it, and it's like, I I wanted not to have many expectations for this race because I left the sport for, of course I was in Tough Mudder X. So, but at the same time, like if you're not including that, I'd left it for a while and I, didn't really know where I stood, especially stacked up to these other ladies who have, obviously been racing stadium races for a while, I think. And so like, of course I have expectations for myself and, everyone's like, oh, Corinna's back. And then it's like, oh, well, she didn't even podium or something. Like, I'm sure it wouldn't really matter. But to me, it was like, I feel like I pick up right where I left off. Like, okay, well, I have all these expectations for myself and can't help but think about other people's perceptions of like where you should be, based on what you've been doing. So yeah, I put pressure on myself to like do really well, but I also had no idea like, what are the obstacles? Like what, I didn't even, I didn't know how many reps of things and what, what kind of stations there were and how that was going to feel. And I'll tell you, like, I was dead last after coming out of the jump rope section, which was maybe the first, what was it? Like 100, 200 yards into that race.
No.
I was dead last. I don't know. I looked at the photos cause they posted some photos from the jump rope section. And there's this picture of me like, my rope's over here, my feet are over here. Like I look so uncoordinated, unathletic, and there's no argument why, like, I did so poorly in that.
So you arrived with everybody else, but you left slower than everyone?
Yeah, cause I got called out with the first wave, and I was in that front line, which was that was unexpected. But like that was obviously really cool. But I ran right to the jump ropes and I just went in the very last spot or like one of the second to last spots instead of running up to the front, which you guys should tell me what the best strategy of that is. But you're in lanes, you're really close to each other. So I kept hitting the girls' rope in front of me. And like I'm used to little thin ropes for double unders in CrossFit. And so these were like big ropes, and I just kept kind of tripping up and then hitting the girl in front of me. And so sure enough, I roll out of there, and it's kind of sucky that they don't have a better way to count your reps. Like you just, count out loud. It's like, well, just to stop someone from doing,
It's really bad. And some people choose not to count and other people just lose track. You shouldn't ever have to count your own reps.
No, you shouldn't. And I think that's really lame because, it takes, if someone's if you're messing up and then you're doing your full 15 reps versus someone who's not messing up but only choosing to do 10 or 12, like that's a decent amount of time that, in a short course where it's all about placement. So yeah, I left there last, kind of was thinking, oh, this is not good. Like the whole point is to get out early, place, give yourself a good position because it's really hard to pass in those little rows. So I thought that was going to be like, I think the outcome of that race could have been totally different. So I'm not going to say like I got lucky getting second, but things like, one of the girls who was in front of me missed her spear throw. So that put me, ahead. And then of all things, the assault bike actually put me ahead, which is so funny because I suck at the assault bike. And
yeah, but you suck from a CrossFit girl's realm, not suck from an OCR person's world.
Sure. And like usually those kinds of power output type movements, like the assault bike or the rower, like, something like that. Weight definitely helps with that. And I know I weigh a lot more than the girls like I was racing against.
What do you weigh?
I'm 135. So I'm pretty sure the girls are pretty.
God, you're teeny. That is so weird. You give off the impression that you'd like. I was waiting for you to say like, yeah, I'm like 150, because you give off this like bulky,
It's
vibe.
like 135. It's between 135 and 140. But like I know that these girls,
Girl who took third looked like a distance runner.
Yeah. I think it, like I'm carrying a lot of muscle in. Like a lot more upper body muscle than a lot of these girls. Well, and probably lower body, but like than a lot of the other girls. And so definitely, it takes a toll when you're just trying to run fast. And then the obstacles and the.
Where'd you feel good? Where'd you feel bad? Climbing, carrying the sandbags, doing the strength obstacles. What? Yeah,
I think the sandbag, I felt good. I felt like I could put on, like I put some time between the girls that were behind me. I passed like that Herc hoist. like I was expecting it to be so heavy. It's been a while. So like I put my foot up on the wall and I see the girls beside me like dropping to the ground and then like, and using their leg up on the fence. And I just get up to it and I'm like, that was when I passed 2 girls on that. I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to pull this and then lower
They
it
have a
down.
lighter weight in the stadiums. If you go outdoors, there's another bag attached to it.
Oh, wait, what?
Oh, really?
Yeah, the stadiums have one less sandbag attached to it than the outdoor stadium
Why is that?
outdoor races do.
Just to make it faster?
Because originally they used to have those inside and you couldn't put your feet on the fence because the fence wasn't anchored down. So you had to stand up. So they made it lighter, but now they still do the lighter weight, but you can use the fence if you want.
Do they clarify before a race, like you can use 1 foot or 2 foot or you can't touch it?
I haven't heard them do that in a while. Outdoors at the big races, they clarify, but not indoors.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the rules are in City Field about a month ago. That was my first stadium in like, I don't know, 3 years or something. And so I remembered the other one was like a piece of tape on the ground. And if your foot crossed it, that was like, okay, you can't do it. And it was borderline impossible because at the time I think I weighed, this was before TMX came around. So before I gained weight, I think I weighed like 155. And those bags weighed like right around there. And so it was almost impossible. If you didn't have some kind of anchor, you would just slide across it, even if you were strong enough to do it. So I just rolled up to City Field.
150-pound Hercules, Benny.
I said around there. I don't know how much to weigh.
I don't think it's ever been over 120.
No, the point is the weight was enough for a 155-pound guy to not be able to do it without sliding. So I figured.
I'm just fact checking here.
I don't understand the physics of pulleys and anchors and how much percentage of weight it takes away. Whatever, Brakken.
Needless to say, it was light. So
yes,
yeah,
it's faster in stadiums just to stand up and pull it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
well,
that was, okay. I was a little disappointed in like the rigs. Like
yes.
there was nothing really like tricky obstacle wise, and it's
it was
like
easy, right?
Yeah, like the Z walls, easy, like especially, and obviously that can change with like it's. If the weather's really crappy, like obviously the elements can maybe change some things, but it's like, I don't know. I was really hoping for some cooler obstacles. Yeah. Like Tough Mudder does a great job with their obstacles. Like TMX, like I just remember kind of a little bit fearful of like the obstacles before you start the race. Like, oh shoot, I don't know if I'm going to get through this one, or like, I really hope I don't, mess up on this one. And, not knowing what to expect in the stadium race, I thought about like obstacles I'd done in the past and, was wondering like, oh, is there going to be anything out there that's like really hard for me?
Yeah.
But
they made an unfortunate decision for their everyday consumer that the stadium race and the sprints are the entry-level race, so they get the easiest obstacles. And then if you go to a super, the rigs get harder and you get Twister and Olympus, and then the Beast is the hardest. But what that does is it reduces the short course just to the hardest obstacle is the pace you have to keep in between.
Yeah.
Rather than the longer events are more running based. It's actually the shorter events are the most running based because it's the least difficult obstacles.
Which is so frustrating because like I hadn't done a Spartan before this year in like, I don't know, like 3.5 years because of that fact. Like for me, the hardest thing about Spartan had always been the pace that everyone keeps. And then as soon as I decided, okay, I can't fight it anymore. Like if you don't have a name in Spartan, it doesn't matter what you win, you have to do Spartan. And so I jumped in right when they nailed down that formula, which honestly, I totally get. Like if you're new, of course you're going to pick the shortest course. And obviously they don't want to cripple your soul with a bunch of hard obstacles. So they give you the easy obstacles. But now it's like, I'm trying to toe the line of becoming a really fast runner, but in a race that doesn't value like obstacle difficulty, like the rings. I did actually see somebody, I don't know who it was, and to whoever you are, you need to work on your technique because it was just rings. In the elite, I think I didn't even get called for the first or second wave. I had to like weasel my way into the second wave, but somebody failed the rings. And I was like, what? It's rings. Like
I was really slow not slow, but like I went to every ring and I just like it'd been a while since I was just on really easy rings like that. So I just like some girl definitely passed me on the rings and I was like, oh shit. Like,
were you doing the L or were you one arm swinging?
Yeah, I was kind of like swinging, one arm swinging it, but it wasn't like a very fast one arm swing. Right.
So how'd you feel like, so obviously you didn't feel fear with any of the obstacles, but did you feel, well, I guess that answered it, right?
Well, I did for the spear throw.
Oh, but you stuck it.
I stuck it. So that's
okay.
good.
Those targets, if you hit them, like if you can just hit it, it's not like the hay where it's like you really got to stick it. If the tip hits, it's basically going in.
Although I will say, getting the spear out, I don't know if you guys had to pull it.
Yes.
There was one volunteer who was helping get the spears out, but they were stuck in there, like no joke, stuck. Like I talked to Orla after, and I guess she went to like two or three different different sections to get a spear because it wasn't coming out, and like the volunteer, obviously was a little bit
doing nothing.
And that was the shortest spear throw.
And I was like, oh shit. What'd you say, Brakken?
That spear throw was the shortest spear throw I've ever seen in a race. The closest to the target. Oh, and as a result, the spears were just buried into there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brakken, tell her what happened with your spear. You almost got speared.
I didn't almost get speared, but same thing happened to Forrest and I. We couldn't get it out, and we had to wrap it around our hands and yank. And when we did, it launched out and it slid underneath the fence behind us and got all wrapped up in the fence. And we were just
my gosh.
Like, I don't know if I can even move to a different spear now. Like, I've started the obstacle. Is this a failure? We had to sit there and untangle. It probably didn't take as long as it felt, but in that moment, it felt like it spent hours trying to get the spear back on the right side of the fence and untangled.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a nightmare. That's the last thing you want to do but think about the volunteer too. Like, the last thing I want to do is walk in front of a bunch of people throwing spears. Right. Clearly can't throw very well, I'm sure, and try to unstick them. So I bet that was pretty funny in the open heats. Well,
I think that's the whole purpose of them adding the string to the end of it, is so that volunteers don't have to go out there anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just glad I stuck it. So that was probably my most feared. I've been practicing though. I did build my own. My boyfriend Taylor built it for me, and we've just been practicing at the park. And he's a former quarterback, so he's just been teaching me. Like he's
look at the look on Benny's face right now.
No, the quarterback.
He's a catch, huh?
Actually, he's a throw.
Beni and Corinna had a unfortunate, uncomfortable run-in at the stadium.
It was not uncomfortable. It was absolutely hilarious.
I wasn't there, but I wish I had been. I had to be told it by Beni. But
okay, well, tell me about the after effect. Was Taylor wasn't awkward about it. He seemed like
you have to tell the story first.
Well, so Beni and I spent 5 hours together in the airport, and I've only spent time with Beni like on our normal turf, like he and I talking, or at a race. I've never seen him in normal public settings. And what I learned about Beni is that he's exactly the same no matter where you are. And that includes like if you're sitting next to a family or an old couple, like the things that come out of his mouth on here are the same things that come out of his mouth anywhere. And I think that's probably, a positive about Beni, is that you're not going to get any fake Beni. But the downside is that anyone who's around him is subjected to whatever he's thinking.
They're subjected to me.
Yes. So go ahead, Beni. Talk about you were watching Corinna finish the race.
Well, hold on. I want to hear the version of it that Taylor told Corinna.
No, just hear it, and then we'll talk about the aftermath.
Okay. Well, so I came across the finish line, and we kind of mill around, chat with each other for a minute, and then we all turn around and look for the girls. And we're like, okay, where's first and second?
We all looked for the girls. Beni looked for a girl.
Okay. I had already spotted Orla. I'm standing next to two random guys I've never met before. And I'm just like, okay, where's Corinna? Because, obviously we're all interested to see how Corinna's going to do. She's been gone for 2 years. And I see her behind Orla. And I just look and I'm like, God, that woman is a goddess. I would marry her in a heartbeat. And the guy to my left turns to me and goes, hey, I already beat you to it. Name's Taylor. I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And he just starts saying, like, he was like, well, I'm glad you didn't launch into, I'd honk and squeeze every part of her. And I was like, no, I'm a moderately classy person. But on the inside, I was like, wow, I'm really glad that's all I said, because that would have been super awkward.
What are the odds that you would start verbally lusting after someone right next to their boyfriend?
And that's his first race ever. Like, what the hell are the chances that he would be there?
Gosh, it was so funny. Yeah. No, I'm flattered, Beni. That was very sweet of you to say. So
yeah.
But it was so funny. I guess Taylor so going to your point, like, what did Taylor say? I guess he was chatting with one of the other guys he was standing next to, and you were all three or so watching the finish. And then I guess when you said that, because I think he was talking to the other guy and saying, oh yeah, like Corinna's my girlfriend. And so then when you said that, Taylor said he looked over at the other guy like, shit, this kid doesn't know. So anyway, but he was no animosity at all, but it was just really funny.
So Benny doesn't have to look out at AT&T.
So what?
Benny doesn't have to look out, like look over his shoulder at AT&T.
Well, Taylor unfortunately won't be at AT&T, so
okay.
Yeah, but
he trusts to send you out alone now to these races.
Yeah,
and there's people like Benny waiting.
I don't know.
This would be where a bolder man than I would fill the silence with, all right, so I'm free, I'm free to say whatever I want at this race.
Oh man, yeah, he'll have sensors on me, so.
Nice. So speaking of AT&T, how are you feeling about that? Because that's one that everybody shows up to. It's got the most climbing. It's the longest. Yeah,
actually, so I don't really know a lot about AT&T, but Taylor was telling me that like it's the Cowboy Stadium, so it makes the National Stadium look like a high school.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah. So
it's like Taylor compared to Benny.
Whoa. Hey. Actually, to that point, he was smaller than I thought. I'd seen pictures of him before, and he looked like he was like
digging that grave, Benny.
Obviously, he's like 50 times my size muscularly, but for some reason I thought he was like Hunter's height. But I guess not. That's good. He gives off the vibe of being a big, dominating, like 6'2" guy.
No, I mean we've been doing a lot of like outdoor training together, so if he seems smaller on the muscular side of things, we've been doing a lot more endurance related stuff. But but it was it's fun to train some of these with him. You know, it's always nice to have a trainer.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, I mean, I think, he was telling me that the stadium's a lot bigger. So I don't know, you guys can probably tell me more about it, but I mean, are you going from the bottom all the way to the top for like on?
Sometimes it has probably twice as much climbing as what we just did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of climbing, Corinna,
yes.
Out of everyone who was in the World Championship in 2014 that you took second, you were the Spartan runner-up, correct?
Yes.
So in that World Championship, out of the women's podium, how many people have made a podium now in the last 2 years?
Yeah, I guess. So it's Claude and April?
Yeah. And you're the only person who I think
Claude's
in the last
pregnant,
3 years.
I don't know. So I don't know.
That doesn't count.
But yeah, I don't know.
You're the longest lasting off that World Championship podium. Then the next person up, do you remember who was behind the podium in fourth?
Yeah, it was Lindsay.
So Lindsay's the next one up, but you are holding reign as the highest finishing, still competing and making podiums athlete at that championship.
Oh, wow.
The men's side is different. The men's side was Albin, Atkins, Cody, and then I think Hunter, Isaiah. Like the men's side is all the same, and the women's side has had a huge amount of turnover. Why do you think that is? Is it just the nature of the sport? Were you guys always a few years behind the men in terms of filling it out, or did it just take a while?
Yeah, I think the men's side, like just looking at the guys, all you guys have finished, in the top, like, yeah, there's been a lot of recycling going on. Like you guys just stay up there across all the domains, all the different, race lengths. For the girls, I think it did take, like, part of the reason why there's so much turnover, I think it did take some time for the sport to find, like, the right women to, the fastest women, but also, able to undergo these obstacles. And so I think it was playing catch up a little bit. But just when I think about all the girls, from the girls' side, I mean, they're all so much, like, there's so much runner base, to them. It's pretty remarkable. Not to say the guys aren't, but, I feel like, like, you have Ryan and Hunter, who are definitely more muscular guys than, you might think would win one of these long.
You really only have one girl who is the outlier right now, and that's Alyssa.
Yeah.
Outside, you have like 5 or 6 Alyssas on the men's side.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. It's really hard. I think I remember, after that World Championship, like after 2014, the 2015 one was the first time it was in Tahoe, right?
Yes.
I just remember, like, I think I finished 9th. I think it was 9th. So I went from, or maybe it was 11th. I can't remember. I think I'm getting like OCR World Championship and Spartan Race World Championship mixed up for 2015. But I just remember all of a sudden, like, you know, like I had a great finish in 2014. Then all of a sudden, 1 year later, I'm out of the top 10, you know, and it's like, what the hell? But I remember, you know, that was Rhea's first year, was in 2015, and she's this little thing. I just remember her passing me and being like, this is tiny chick just passing me, you know, and of course,
Right.
because she's so, you know, she's got such a great running background, but there were all these girls who finished before me that were so tiny and, like, you know, even from a muscular, like, I'm sure Rhea's been training, you know, maybe more strength-based since starting, but like the amount of girls who beat me, who were just little twigs, you know, I was so surprised. And I just felt like, wow, maybe the obstacles this year, because I remember in Killington, like, we had the Tyrolean, we had, I mean, that was a big one for me.
It was a different test. It tested
totally
two different athlete types. Tahoe just rewarded the highest aerobic
mountain
capacity.
bikes. Yeah.
In Killington, you had to hike. You had to power hike. We had 2 spears. We had the double sandbag from hell. You had the Tyrolean. It was just every part of that course, it rewarded a different skill set. And suddenly, when that skill set wasn't tested, suddenly everyone was out in the lurch. Like, what happened? I thought I was going to win or go top 3, and suddenly they're outside the top 10.
Yeah, totally. I think it was just a total shift in, like, the style of race. And I don't think it's gone back. You know, I've raced, I mean, I missed last year's World Championship, probably the last 2 or 3 maybe. But, like, I remember for 15 and 16, like, it was just very much the same course for the World Championship.
Yeah. I don't think there's much evidence to the contrary that small people just dominate OCR. Like, TMX is the only outlier, because if you look at all the championship races, like when that started happening, you remember back when Battlefrog invented the platinum rig and we had it in Ohio for the first time, and it was like a wall, like all the women just like smashed into this thing and no one was getting through it. And then that girl who looked like she was like 12 years old from Sweden came through. Do you remember what was her name?
Is that Karen or no? There's
no. It was kind of a funky name. I can't remember. She's tiny. Surrey, England. And everyone was like, what the crap? She just, like, she looked like a kid on a playground. You know, kids just, they don't even look like they're trying. They just swing through something. And if you look at all the champions, I mean, John Albin's got to weigh like upper 130s, 140.
Balls.
What? How much does he weigh?
John's like 6 foot 155, probably 160 maybe.
Okay, well that's still on the lighter side. Then you got Cody Moat, who
it's 25 pounds different than 135.
Okay, well Moat and Cody are both in that like 140 range.
Moat and Cody, which one's which?
Oh, sorry, Moat and Hobie.
Oh,
they got mixed up in my brain.
They're upper 140s.
Yeah, so 140s, and then on the women's side, who do we have? I mean, Nicole is starting to win. Lindsay's a tiny girl. Rhea's itty bitty.
Yeah, they're all like 115 at their race.
Everything's just heavy enough that you have to have some strength to carry it. But once you have that baseline minimum amount of strength, even the heavy carries go right back to who's the fastest mountain runner.
Totally.
It's not heavy enough yet to get rid of that body frame.
You take a really strong person and you give them that same sandbag carry or the bucket carry, it's still very aerobic. Like, you still have to go up a giant hill and back down. So it's like your muscles are just going to having that extra strength is just going to weigh you down and make it feel almost harder in a sense.
It's crazy the extent to which that exhibits, especially in the women's side, because like at OCR Worlds, they don't change. There's no men and women's weight, and yet the women. And so you would think it would create like a slightly different athlete for the women than it would the men, because it's so much more difficult for the women because it's the same weight. And yet it's the same women kicking ass, like these tiny girls, even with, no, Brakken, neither of you were there. They had this carry in London last year where it was basically a big bomb. It was like a torpedo, and you had to carry it in front of you, and it wasn't something you could put on your shoulders or anything. And it was like long and awkward. And Lindsay, I don't know why I didn't think about this. She just carried it like a bucket. And so it like towered up over her, which would have been so much easier, because when you carry something in front of you in a big circle like this, it just burns your biceps and makes you run weird. But the women crushed it. They had I'm not gonna say no problem with it, but I kept on thinking, okay, this is where like Alyssa or something will steam ahead. But something I've really learned that Brakken taught me is, it just comes down to aerobic. Like if you can lift it off the ground and you're not doing reps of lifting it off the ground, and you have to make forward progress, it still comes down to your aerobic tank. Totally.
And I think it's something that rock climbing can give you all the tools for. And, from a grip strength, for a lot of the obstacles. And then, just a good body weight style strength training that's not going to add a lot of bulk. And I think that's kind of like the best. I think that's the best training for it. And clearly, that's mostly what Lindsay does, Nicole, I'm sure a handful of the other girls,
the sport is a power to weight ratio contest. It really is. And anytime people bulk up, they have to have the corresponding increase in running, which just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, you're rewarded. So I had a question for you, because you've done the huge long endurance and you've done the CrossFit. You've seen both ends of the spectrum. What is your take on races like OCR World Championships that say, we're doing gender equality. Like, we're not going to give any breaks, or everyone does the same obstacles with no women step up and no reduction in weight for the women. Is that equality to you, or is that foolish?
So, and I'm not sure which, I don't know all the obstacles for OCR World Champions. So
let's just say tall walls, or regular walls, tall walls, and heavy carries. Do you think there should be differentiation, or do you think that we need to ignore gender and say we're treating everyone equally?
Well, I don't think we should necessarily ignore gender, but I also think that for the most complaints you hear is that, the girls' weight is too light. It's like, I hear that a lot amongst the female runners. Like, everything's way lighter than the men's side of things. So for me, who really enjoys like the heavier stuff and the more the more difficult obstacles, I like the sound of that. Like, I think that sounds fun, like more exciting to me, and kind of like not levels the playing field, but I feel like it allows for a different skill set, or maybe a greater skill set than maybe what, Spartan offers through really basic obstacles.
So would you keep it as OCR WC does it, where it's just same weights across the board? Or would you just do something like CrossFit does, where you have a more accurate range of your ratio from men's to women's weights?
Yeah. And I think it depends. I like how CrossFit does it, because it is scaled appropriately for the genders. In some cases there is a huge difference, but for kettlebells for girls, it'll be like 35, and then CrossFit will be 53. So, the dumbbells, there's a little bit of a difference. So it's interesting that OCR World Championship is doing that. I'm not sure if I have, if I've just put enough thought into it to see, I think if it's outrageous or not, to do that.
And I'm not saying I have a feeling one way or the other. I was curious your take as a female competitor.
Yeah. I do with the walls and the obstacles, give us the same hard lane, give us the same, unless it's something that is height's a factor, right? Where, okay, so maybe the wall, that would be something, because if someone who's 5'5" like me is racing, and then, a shorter athlete who's only 5'2", it's almost impossible for that person to scale the same wall or something, then it's a little bit just unfair. It's not really taking, in those scenarios, I feel, or if it's something that has to do with arm span, then I think that there should be gender.
All right. So last
that's a good question.
Extrapolation of this question is, if the sport ever got really, really big, where there are big, huge sponsors, and it was like a giant spectacle every time, and you had to come in the day before, kind of like Ironman, and check your equipment in and everything. If there was a small enough field, like 25 people pro card, men and women, would you appreciate or think it would be foolish in order for people to weigh in and have everyone's carry be the same percentage of weight? So you weigh in the morning of the race, and they weigh out your bucket, and they label it, and they seal it, and they put it on your number 13, you're in spot 13, your hoist is 13, your sandbag is 13, and you go and get your 48 or 88% of your body weight every time. Would that level playing field, or would that be foolishness?
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's how, like, in CrossFit, I think that would be like, I'm excited for a competition in CrossFit to go off of body weight, because like there's a huge variance in body types and body weights across guys, across girls. And so I feel like, maybe it all levels out in the grand scheme of things and movements with CrossFit. But at the same time, it's like, you just get to a point where a smaller person is just not, it's going to be almost impossible to lift some of the
I agree.
numbers as someone else.
It'd be a better test of functional strength. It'd be a worse test of showing up and completing what's put in front of you.
Yes.
Because you can't scale the walls.
Right.
If a 6-foot person and a 5-foot person both get there, you can't be like, well, your wall is going to be 8'6" and yours is going to be 7'2".
Right.
But it would change carries dramatically.
Sure.
Is there a sport that currently does that?
I mean, there's weight classes for combat sports.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the closest thing I could think of was in fighting, but there aren't nearly as many variables, which makes it so much easier. Like, yeah, it makes sense that you should fight someone nearly equivalent so that it's an actual competition. But in our sport, there's so many variables that I think it extends to foolishness, or at least to drastic changes, because there would have to be entire massive lanes of obstacles that all have tiny different tweaks to make it equal for each person.
But like assuming Brakken, like where you say, assuming like that was doable, right? Like
assuming it was only weight based.
Right. Because I think like in theory,
I'm not saying this is the best option. It's just a option.
Right.
In theory, I think it's a good idea, but then you think about, okay, weight class sports, like you just think about the cutting, like the process of now the focus will be on cutting and dehydrating, and then you're taking.
And I think you can get rid of all. I understand those are absolute problems, but I think you get rid of all of the weight cutting issues by weighing in the morning of the event. So if registration starts at 7, if you weigh in at 6, no one's going to risk having to rehydrate after a weight cut 2 hours before their race. Yeah. The night before, you'll see people try it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see like how performance takes a toll.
And they can't do that in combat sports, because if they weighed in at the cage or at the ring and then had to step through, if they didn't make it, the fight would just be off and the fans would be screwed and all that. But with our sport, nothing wouldn't go on.
Right.
Like if you didn't make your weight you wanted, you would just get a higher percentage carry.
Right.
So there'd be no punishment and nothing.
Yeah. I think that'd be interesting. That would be cool to see.
It'd be a process though.
It would be.
Yeah.
Sure.
Corinna, you've never struck me as someone who has, this is completely out of left field, but I was just thinking about how so many athletes in our sport, their main focus or their main struggle is just to remain healthy. It's not even to, dial in their training or their nutrition. It's just, they need like both, like they just have to be healthy and then they're fantastic. Mm-hmm. I can't actually think of any time where an issue, like an injury or health issue has messed with you aside from that big fall in Breckenridge. Has that ever been something that's messed with you, like a, weird ankle or something like that?
Yeah. And I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, it's pretty cool to be, been around, like in this sport, I guess technically since 2014, and, it's 5 years later. And I've been really fortunate in staying really healthy. And I do, I'm actually studying for my dietetics exam now, but, as a future dietitian, like the nutrition component is something that I really dialed into and put a lot of emphasis on, and believe that has probably the biggest impact on keeping me healthy and injury free.
Let's dig into that.
Really?
Yeah. Feel free to, I think, and just to answer that one injury question, I did have a stress fracture in my tibia, like one of the Battlefrog years. I think it was after World's Toughest Mudder, and then training, pretty much not taking any off time to before like a Battlefrog race in January. And I just kind of pretty much trained like a week and a half after World's Toughest Mudder, which I didn't, obviously get that much mileage in, but I just kind of continued training, and I didn't give myself a big enough rest time, and then tried to be ready in January for a long event. So that would be the only time, other than like an ankle sprain or falling on that rock, that I've had an actual injury. But yeah, the nutrition component is huge for me. And it's been fun to, as I'm studying it in school, actually apply it. My focus is sports nutrition. So it's like applying those principles that I'm learning in school and, using them for my benefit in racing and whatever competition I'm doing.
So
I'm not asking you to give away like the farm, because I know you're going to be doing your own work with it and people are going to pay for this type of information. But like, if you don't mind, get into a little bit some of your beliefs on nutrition, why it matters so much, and what you see as, if there is such a thing, an optimal path for fueling an endurance OCR specific athlete.
Sure. And I think that, like, I look back in 2014 and I was in my undergrad, and it's interesting because there's eating for health and longevity, and there's eating for performance, and there's overlap there, of course, but then there's also aspects of it that don't necessarily overlap. Like, especially for, you think about pre-training fuel or pre-race fuel during, your event, and then post-race. And a lot of the things that you think about for like health food wise, like those aren't appropriate times for complex carbs, superfoods, like all that stuff. There's simple carbohydrates are really what's going to get you through a pre, during, and post workout, especially in our sport with how aerobic it is. Like, we rely on carbs. Carbs are really important for us. And I just remember I think back to my diet during my senior year of college, which is when I placed second at the Spartan Race World Championship. And I've never been like a dieter or anything. So I think I've always had a really wholesome view on nutrition, not restricting things, but just having a really solid approach to like 85-90% of what I eat. But I do remember there was a time where I kind of, especially with everyone trying, like, cutting out carbs, like there's always fad diets, the keto diet, everyone thinking carbs are bad. And it's really easy to get caught up in all of that. And so, yes, there's plenty of carbs that, like, if your activity level is pretty low, you want to maybe cut those out, because, if you're not as active, your carbs don't need to reflect a marathon runner, right? So I always think of like carbs being reflective of your activity level. So I think there was a time where I was like, didn't eat as much carbs. And I think I really felt that when I got back into like eating carbs. I was like, wow, I was so stupid. Why did I do that? But it's just interesting to see what people decide to do with their diet for our sport. I don't know that anyone is doing like a ketogenic diet. Thank goodness.
I don't think I did it.
I did it for 7 months. It was such a horrible experience.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not to say that I do think that there's plenty of carbs. Like our American diet is so full of like processed packaged crap carbohydrates, refined sugars, all that stuff. Like, so from that sense, yes, it'd be great for most people to cut out those types of carbs, because that's the majority of carbs that a lot of Americans are eating. So ketogenic diet, if that's how they want to, obviously to be called a ketogenic diet, you have to be in a state of ketosis, but most people are just subbing the word ketogenic for high fat, low carb. So in that sense,
the worst of both worlds. They get not the carbs, and then they feel like crap all the time.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, so it's more so for me, it's just like, hey, look at your carbohydrate sources, change those up, cut out the, not so healthy carbohydrate sources, and then you get, a good diet. So I think it can be overcomplicated by, what's out there in the media and, celebrities endorsing certain stuff.
That's the worst, isn't it?
That's the worst. Yes. Oh gosh. Like Beyonce has one. Jillian Michaels.
Gwyneth Paltrow is pretty bad too. I've noticed recently. It kills me because I always liked her as an actress, and I realized she's kind of a crazy person.
Yeah, it's hard because that reaches, honestly, like that has a much bigger reach than a lot of nutrition professionals who actually like
know what they're talking about.
And it holds more weight for some reason with people.
It does, especially for young girls who like that's like the last thing they need to do is restricting whole food groups and restricting foods that totally have a place in the diet. And that's not really the way to think about food. And I think that's a really like having negative associations with certain foods. Like I eat anything. Like I'll have donuts. I'll have sour gummy worms. Like I love all those things, but that's not like, I'll have those, very infrequently, and I'll just have them when I want to, but that's not the foundation of my diet. And that's not, it's not my focus. And
Corinna,
so
you got to get to the next level and switch to the sour octopi. So much better than the worms.
Yeah. All those extra arms I do.
So good.
And so like for people to be eating, and especially young girls, like eating foods and then like automatically associating that with like, negative feelings and of self-worth and all that stuff like that, they don't need that. And so for celebrities to be kind of like condoning all carbs or like certain food groups,
Yeah. It makes sense that they have so much more influence with them though, because it's like they're appealing to the emotional response, not the logic, which the majority of the population doesn't make logic-based decisions. And that completely makes sense. I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about dietitians in general, like people who are really knowledgeable about nutrition. It must be like when you're in the gym and you see somebody doing something that is going to snap their spine and you're aching to tell them, but you're like, that must be what just daily life is for somebody who knows nutrition. They just walk around watching people and it's like, ah!
Yeah. Yes and no. Like I get what you're saying, but I also think like you can watch someone eat any type of food and it's like, that's not the end of the world. It's fine. Right. But it's just like, yeah, if it was like had a time lapse camera on like one person and it's like, okay, what are they continuously eating? Yes, that would be similar in that, oh gosh, I'm cringing. But I just think, yeah, I mean, it's hard because everyone's there and everyone is a proclaimed expert in the field, right? It's like, oh, I tried this and it worked, or my mom tried this, my cousin. So it's really hard. Like this field is definitely hard because you have to cut through a lot of crap. And that's almost the hardest part is like cutting through all the crap to actually get to the science. And convincing clients or just people in general that like the majority of their beliefs are based off of incredible
Yeah. All right. Have you decided what branding process you're going to take with yourself? Are you going to be the Coffin guru or the health coach, life coach, Jedi mind nutrition coach? Like, do you have
so I do have I've got my hands in a couple different pots right now with nutrition coaching. I have like my own client base that I'm continuously expanding. And then I'm working for a couple of different, Chris Beeler's Icon Athlete. He does CrossFit programming, but I'm taking on the nutrition coaching side of things. And then with Beni Fit, health and fitness, I'm taking on some clients of hers too.
You said Beni Fit?
Jenny Fit.
Beni Fit. Gotcha.
Yeah, got it. But that's kind of like, I would like to keep up that side hustle, but I would love to be a tactical dietitian. That's like my end goal or is to work with military men and women, their nutrition.
I'm glad you specified because I just pictured you like full on camo, like hiding in people's kitchens, waiting for them to eat something. Like, no, you can't have that. And you like morph back into the wall.
It's funny because I just like part of me wants to be in the military so bad. And like my brother's in the Navy and like, that's always been something that half of me really wants to do. But then the other half of me likes,
freedom.
The freedom of not being on the military schedule. And so I feel like working as a tactical dietitian, a contractually based or, a contract dietitian for military is kind of the way to go. I get the best of both worlds. Get to be kind of in that scene and in that environment, but also like on my own time.
You should make a connection. I can make this afterwards if it's something you're interested in, but you've heard about Alpha Warrior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the owner of that company, he originally created that race brand just to market his own nutrition products. And he's like a world-class chef. And they recently, past like couple years, they've been hardcore focused. They actually kind of just like essentially ditched the race series and just made it all about the military. So they have like an Alpha Warrior rig set up with all kinds of training equipment on almost every military base in America. And that's all they do is they go around to these different tours. And so there might be some kind of connection with your history with obstacle course racing and it being an obstacle racing brand that is targeted specifically to the military. That seems like a pretty easy fit for you to jump in there. And Yancey kind of runs the whole thing. So
yeah. And his wife's Yancey's wife's a dietitian. She's a sports dietitian.
Oh, got some competition.
No, I feel like it's a great overlap, like obstacle course racing, the military. I feel like there's a huge overlap in that, and it's nice to see. And it's also fun, like, you know, when I go out to visit my brother, like going on their obstacle course and like, you know, just being able to do some of the things that, you know, initially guys who might go out there might be a little bit like hesitant or might not be able to do certain obstacles. So it's fun. It's fun to, you know, have that relation a little bit, or that parallelism with.
Right. So in what specific way, when you said that nutrition would be kind of what you've put at the highest ranking thing that's preventative for injuries, how, in my mind, it's almost like, wait, how is, you know, good form and good mobility and stretching and things like that not come first? So how specifically has nutrition played a role in your life, and you see it for other people as being kind of the thing that keeps people physically healthy? As far as
I think that there's a lot of focus for people on macronutrients, right? Fats, carbs, proteins. And then there's a lot less focus on the micronutrients, right? The vitamins, the minerals, even like the phytonutrients from plants, and a lot of plants and mostly plant foods. So I try to, and it's a lot more work because, you know, now it's, instead of just like, oh, the carb's a carb, now it's like, okay, well, what types of carbs am I having? And am I getting a variety of them? And then, you know, have I been avoiding certain types of these macronutrients, which would then therefore lead to like a deficiency in one of the micronutrients that's predominantly in that certain food. So I think for me, it's focusing on the micro and the macro, really, you know, honing in on whole foods that are, again, it sounds like a broken record, but it's, you know, a lot of fruits and vegetables that contain a lot of the, you know, compounds that are going to keep our body functioning in a proper way, rather than, you know, just a bunch of processed carbs, proteins, and fats. So, you know, you can hit all the macros and be healthy from like an outside perspective, but, you know, if you're not focused on what that composition looks like, then, you know, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And
so when people say fruits and vegetables, I think there's a lot that are potentially a lot more helpful in those ranges, and some that are essentially, I'm not gonna say useless. I'm sure there's a purpose for a flipping cucumber, but cucumber doesn't really carry like that much nutrition, right? Compared to something like kale.
Well, and that's the thing, like, so there's micronutrients, and then there's these compounds called phytonutrients or phytochemicals that are plant compounds that have a variety of health promoting, disease preventing functions that you can't really quantify. So if cucumbers do have, you know, a decent amount of micronutrients, but then you can't really quantify these phytonutrients and like what they can actually do for you. But the fact of the matter is they're present in those plant foods, whereas, you know, a supplement form of that is not going to do anything for you, because you're just extracting that one little, even with a vitamin, like vitamin A, there's thousands of different forms of vitamin A, but there's probably, like, in the supplement form, you're getting one form of that, one isoform of that. And so you're missing out on all the different types of vitamin A in, you know, a food that contains a lot of vitamin A, rather than like the supplement form. So a lot of people think that supplements can just like, they can out supplement a bad diet because they're covering all their bases with a multivitamin or whatnot. But it's really the properties of real whole plant foods that you can't really quantify, and science hasn't really gotten there with, like, you know, putting a number on them for people to really like be able to wrap their head around.
So two things. If you had to give for, you know, somebody listening to you right now who's wanting to increase, at least in a small way, the health of their diet, what's one fruit and one vegetable that somebody can just start adding into their diet that kind of gives you that whole spectrum, not isolated phytonutrients and the micronutrients? And then the second question would be, I always think about like vegans and vegetarians and them supplementing to make up for certain nutrients that they don't get. Can you speak to instances where that's appropriate? Do you think it's kind of a blanket statement, it's not great for you, or what? So start with the fruit and vegetable.
Okay, well, I guess I'd have to go with my favorite fruit and vegetable. So Well, I guess I would say like mixed greens are kind of the easiest way as a vegetable just to get a variety of micronutrients, but also like every different green, like kale, spinach, romaine, like they all have different nutrient profiles. So getting a box of mixed greens like at the store and consuming that with your lunch, with your dinner is just, or in a breakfast smoothie even, like that's gonna be really helpful for you and really beneficial for you. From a fruit standpoint, I'm such a banana girl, but I would say for the most part, it's just, that's because, great source of carbs, great for pre-workout, during your workout, post-workout. And it's really easy to put in things, especially like smoothies. So that would be my vote for like, maybe not too much on like a micronutrient standpoint, but just from a combination of, a great carbohydrate source and
mixed greens and banana. I heard this, is this true that, everyone freaks out and makes supplements based off of beets because of the nitric oxide increasing content. Mm-hmm. I heard that arugula, which tastes absolutely horrible and ruins every smoothie you put it in, has way more nitric oxide increasing content than beets do. Is that true?
I don't know that for a fact. But I do know it has some. I don't know that if it's more than beets, but I'm with you on the throwing off the taste. Yeah. I'd rather have an arugula salad than the smoothie. But
okay, so the vegan and vegetarian bit.
Yeah, I think it poses more challenges for sure, and you're obviously more susceptible to deficiencies with certain nutrients. B12, vitamin B12, and iron are probably like the two biggest ones.
I could drink a 5-hour energy then, right? And just make up for that?
Gosh, gross. So I just think you have to be more deliberate and intentional with what you're eating, especially if you're a vegan. So I think it's just a matter of like that, come in handy to like track your food and run an analysis on like, what you're deficient in, what you're not, so that you can be more prepared for like supplementation in certain areas. So yeah, it's by no means impossible, but I do think you just have to be a little bit more tuned in more than someone who's just eating kind of all the food groups. So that's just a more generalized answer for you, but I think it's hard to get.
It's not helpless to be vegan or vegetarian, but it requires a lot more work, and there is a way you can get around it to supplement, but you are forever basically fighting an uphill battle.
I think vegetarian, it's less uphill battle than vegan. And it just depends on like your sport, right? If you're trying, and if you are in sport, if you're not participating in sports, it's not as big of a deal, right? Because you're not asking your body, you're not stressing your body as much. But when you throw in performance outcomes as a result, like if that's your focus, obviously restricting certain foods, certain food groups are going to pose greater barriers to your success. And so it's just, you just have to be more dialed in there.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, there's not many like, I think and there's not many strength-based sports that you see a bunch of vegans in, right? And for good reasons. So I think it's just important to know like what your goals are and what your priorities are, and then go from there.
Nice. Are you, but before, last thing before we transition, I see Brakken over there loading up with a bunch of questions. Are you, what's been your angle coming from your nutrition side with the CBD flood that's happened in the past like couple years happened?
Yeah, I've tried out a couple products. Like I haven't looked too much into that right now. But I've definitely tried a handful of CBD products, and they seem to be, like some of the muscle rubs and topical treatments. And they seem to be effective for a lot of people in terms of the oils like that you're actually consuming, or I haven't really looked much into that. And, I think that can easily be marketed to like, just be a really big money making business and have, as
right.
Most supplements are, it's a huge industry, makes a lot of money, but the health claims or the benefits to performance are pretty, like there's pretty low evidence for that. So not to say necessarily there is, I haven't really done a bunch of research with the CBD stuff, but I think it's important not to just focus in on one particular supplement or nutrient or whatnot. I think that that's going to be like your answer for success, athletic
Yeah,
success.
I was wondering, because with it currently having to be classified as a supplement, if that was something that people in your field were studying, or if it's just still something that's kind of like on the fringe, and so it's not really in the studies or the curriculum yet.
Well, it's definitely taking off. Like, it's definitely something that's more studied, but just not by me at the moment. But
Gotcha.
yeah, no, good question.
Well, Corinna, we've kind of arrived at that time for hot takes. These are quick, rapid-fire questions,
Gosh.
but
Okay.
we'll ease it into it for you. We'll start with nutrition.
Okay.
Go-to meal.
Oh,
What's your favorite meal?
I feel like my favorite. Okay.
Favorite food?
I love eggplant parmesan. So
Oh my God.
I love it. I'm Italian.
Do you know why I say, oh my God, when I hear you in particular say eggplant parm?
Oh gosh, why? Is that your favorite meal too?
No. Do you remember that horrible Battlefrog experience? I wanted to kill that.
Oh my God, yes.
That
Where you
was
had to ask me out on a
obnoxious.
date and work on your sales pitch.
God, that was so annoying. Yeah. Why don't you?
Christopher Bates for that. That was
What
hilarious.
is this? I feel like I'm missing out on an awkward story.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm going to put it in a really brief terms because I want to take up all your guys' time. Basically, when Beni was ambassador.
Whoa.
Wait, what was it called?
Race manager.
Sorry,
Race manager
race manager for Battlefrog for the Dallas location, I think.
in Colorado.
They all had to come in to Battlefrog HQ in Miami and get, basically Chris Bates was our
Ugh.
or sales.
It was sales training.
He spearheaded the sales training, and so he took all the race managers and did a 5-day course on.
It was like a week. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, Chris thought it would be funny if he made me come and pulled me into the room since I was working at HQ at the time and wanted Beni to do a sales pitch on me for a date. And so I think one of the questions was he asked me what my favorite food was, and I told him eggplant parm.
It was
the sales pitch went down from there.
It was he made that so weird. Like, it is impossible to make me feel awkward. Like, super impossible. And he was trying to make me ask the date questions. The goal is to get Corinna to go on a date with me, and I had to follow this insanely complex sales pitch that he had been spending the week trying to drill in our heads, and nobody was getting because it was so convoluted. And it was a completely different thing. Like, it did not fit with the scenario at all. But it was like literally the end of the day. I was so livid at that guy. Like, it's hard to make me mad and uncomfortable, but that was super awkward. I was like, this is.
You did a great job though, Beni.
Yeah. He put me in front of the whole class, pulled Corinna in there, and the whole time he's adding comments in left and right. Like, come on, Beni, she's cute, but don't let that mess with you. I'm like, oh my God, that's not it. It's you. I want to stab you. Okay, sorry. Reliving a horrible experience.
But I think he asked me that question somewhere in there, and I said it.
So you're consistent. You've liked
I'm consistent. Yeah, that's actually great. It hasn't changed much.
All right.
Yeah.
Favorite drink?
God.
Favorite drink? Milk.
Yeah. Milk. What kind?
I grew up on skim milk, and then I went through a phase of just having almond milk, but I just to give you the backstory real quick. But I tend to be lower on protein than I ought to be, especially with my increased needs for physical activity. So I've just been back on the milk train, and I love it, and I've missed it so much. So I just switched. I have whole milk, I have 2%, I have 1%, and then not so much skim because I just want the calories.
You get crazy with that chocolate milk?
A little bit, but more so just regular milk for now. Yeah.
All right. What one book should everyone read?
Ooh.
Non-athletic book first.
Non-athletic book first. I got my book stack right under here. What book? Can I look at my book stack real quick?
You may.
Of the title? Oh, this one. Winter Garden. I finished it about 2 months ago. This is great. I have it right here. And it starts off a little slow, but by the end, I kid you not, the last couple pages, I just have tears streaming down, legit full-on sobbing tears down my face for the last 10 pages. And I just remember Taylor looked over at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm just, it's just so, and it was happy tears. It was a happy happy ending book, but I've never like cried so much at the end of a book before. So it's a good read.
Yeah, no spoilers. I'm currently a quarter of the way into that book.
Are you seriously?
Yeah.
What?
It's on Audible. I listen to tons. I mean,
What
with
are
all
the odds? That's crazy, isn't it?
Wow, it's as if he just knew somehow.
yeah, I'm not outside your window right now. I promise.
Are you serious?
No, I'm dead serious. It's on Audible.
Okay, well, you won't even expect it, so I'm not even.
Okay, but please tell me those are like happy tears at the end,
I just
right?
said that. They're happy.
Okay, I was about to read
Are
it.
they?
You're listening to it on Audible. Jeez.
Nina and Meredith
Everyone dies
like
at the
each
end.
other at the end. It's all over and miserable.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Anyway, I have to thank
Crazy
my friend Chris
stalkerish, yeah.
Brown.
All right, one athletic book, one sports-related book everyone should read.
It is. I can't remember the name. Is it Fearless by? I don't know the author.
I'm not sure.
Hold on, let me Google it real quick. Can I Google it real quick?
While you're Googling it, answer favorite movie of all time.
Oh, geez.
Oh, she can't think and Google that at the same time. There's no way.
Favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, see, she stopped Googling.
These are not so rapid fire.
No, they aren't. Oh my gosh.
All right, we're moving on.
Okay.
Moving right on.
If
If you could live and train in one place specifically for OCR, where would it be?
Honestly, I'm really digging Salt Lake City right now. So that's where I am. That's where I've been for the past 2 years. We've got, the altitude, you have the ability to go up higher even. Awesome mountain biking, awesome trails.
The Mormons.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with where I'm at.
Okay. Favorite off-day activity?
Does like physical activity does count towards that? Like swimming? Would swimming count?
Yeah,
Yeah.
non-sports specific.
Okay. I like swimming. I'm trying to get better at it. So swimming, yeah.
All right. Now, you've been onto the OCR scene for a while, so this is a little different for you, but what is your favorite OCR shoe?
Favorite OCR shoe?
Yep, race shoe.
Well, I am sponsored by Ultra. Did you know like Ultra
Ooh.
running? So it would definitely be one of those. But I'm not like, like I really do love their shoes, and so not to be like all rah Ultra, but I do have wider feet, a wider toe box, and so I really like the fact that they make wider shoes for those of us who need a little bit more room in the toes. So
We got some flack. We did a shoe review episode a few episodes back, and we did not include an Ultra option. So maybe next time around, we might have to talk to you beforehand.
I like the Superiors because I mountain bike in them. I trail run in them. I did the stadium race in them, which I probably shouldn't have.
Superiors?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
I thought it was gonna be more turfy. Like I don't know what I was thinking, but
It was zero
water
turf.
all over that. Yeah, it was like there was no turf, and I was slipping and sliding all over the place because there was water all on on those slick floors. So I'm definitely gonna have to change the model for my next race.
Yes.
But yes, the Superior is still my favorite Ultra shoe.
Okay.
Are
Favorite
you?
athlete of all time?
Oh, this is a hard question because I've never been a sports watcher. Like when I grew up, we didn't really do a lot of TV. We definitely didn't watch sports. So that's a hard one. Shoot.
Benny, this just isn't working. You take over. My questions aren't doing it.
Well, no, I was going to ask if she's a Toy Story fan.
No, see, I don't really like cartoons actually.
Well, what? Okay, well, I was going to say your lamp in the background looks like the hooker toy not so much when you lean to the side anymore. I don't know. Quick little fan fact. Did you guys realize that the half fishing pole / legs, that creepy toy in the first one, it's supposed to be a hooker because it's like slender legs and then.
I don't remember that character.
Okay. Well, okay. So you're
Brakken,
not.
I'm really sorry. I'm trying to think of the sports people that I really like.
You can choose an OCR athlete. Who's your favorite OCR
I like
athlete?
watching tennis. I really do.
Okay.
Oh.
I might put Serena. I like it when they both play, Serena and Venus.
All right.
Okay. What's
If
your?
you could be the last one for me, Benny, then it's you. If you could be professional at any sport other than CrossFit or OCR, what would it be?
Ooh. I think rock climbing is really cool. And I would love to be that fearless of heights, especially in the grand outdoors. And I just think that there's a lot of translation into other activities too. So yeah, I think I watched the Free Solo movie a couple months ago, and like my palms were so sweaty watching that.
I watched Dawn Wall the other day with Lisa, and that was good.
Oh, what's it called again?
Dawn Wall.
Is it? But it's a climbing movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got overshadowed by Free Solo.
Oh,
But it's good.
okay.
A Netflix documentary?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'll write that down.
I'm going to check that out. Proudest non-athletic moment. It's always a hard one for athletes. It's like, I don't know.
Proudest non-athletic moment. Well, I can tell you in the future, it'll be when I pass my RD exam, which I hopefully take. Well, I don't want to jinx myself. Does that mean I jinx myself if I said
No, this is bullshit.
Okay.
There's no jinxing.
Hopefully my proudest non-athletic moment will be next month when I finally can call myself a dietitian.
Nice.
Jinxes are like CBD oil. They're not real.
What are like CBD oil?
Jinxes.
Oh.
Hey, here's the second half of the statement, not the first half. Dude, hey, CBD oil got you a third place in City Field. I don't want to hear it, Mr. Hammy.
I took third place in the second one too, without it.
Well, that just means you miscalculated, my friend. Okay, last one. What's your favorite type of music?
Country. That's an easy. That was rapid fire because I love my country music.
All right, top 3 country artists, go.
Oh, that's harder because
Corinna.
Zach, and you just are not vibing with her with these questions.
That's all right. You're the one who needs to vibe with her. I'm good.
Some George Strait, like Tim McGraw. I also like I like some of the newer artists, even though it's a little bit more poppy sounding.
Yeah. You say Taylor Swift next?
No, I don't. No.
She hasn't been country in like 5 years.
Yeah.
Benny, top 3 favorite country artists, go.
Brad Paisley, George Strait, and
You can't copy me.
I'm not. I said Brad Paisley. You didn't say
doing whatever it takes.
And Winona Judd, old school.
Oh. Ooh, I should throw in a little Chris Stapleton in there because
Oh, he's so sad.
he's a little sad, but he's old school sounding.
I don't like actually listening to country music. I actually kind of hate it, but I love dancing to it. It's the best dancing music.
That's fun. Yes, I can.
Do you two-step?
I do. Taylor's better at it, so it's nice.
Oh, nice. I was about to ask, does he do it too? Because that sucks when you're with somebody who doesn't. So it's freaking awesome that he does it. You ever go to country bars or?
Yes, we do. And then they have this mechanical bull there, and
you have all the
I'm
records.
not bragging, but I did last a minute 20 seconds on this guy. So
That's kind of not fair, though. You dress all nice, hide your muscles. You're like, I'm just a regular girl.
this guy apparently he told me he had it all the way up. So I mean, I'm going to take his word for it.
That's what she said.
Do you say that's what she said?
Oh, come on, Benny. Let's move along.
Well, Corinna, do you have anybody that you want to thank or give a shout out to as you are on the biggest platform in the universe for podcasts?
Obviously. I mean, I think I already shouted out to Ultra Running. He's the bomb. And my boyfriend, Taylor, he's the great coach. So I will say that he's a hard ass for sure. And I feel like sometimes with significant others, you can get away with complaining maybe a little bit more, but he doesn't take any shit from me. So I appreciate that in retrospect. Yeah. And then with protein, I do have a protein sponsor called X1 Fuel. They've been keeping these bad boys in check. So yeah, I thank them.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks for having me guys on here. It was fun to chat with you too.
Yeah, good to invite Corinna back. She's going to put some people in the coffin in the future races.
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you at Dallas and then Fenway and that TBD race.
TBD, we'll see. All the way in November. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys in less than a month, right?
Yeah, 1 month even.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in, and leave your questions and reviews. If you want to get connected with Corinna, where can they find you on the gram, on the Facebooks?
The gram is probably the best way to go. I don't really go on Facebook anymore. So CS Coffin 13 on Instagram.
What's the 13?
The 13? It's my lucky number.
Isn't that literally the definition of the unlucky number?
Yeah, but then it became lucky for me. So
Why? Like what happened?
I was a little freshman on my varsity lacrosse team in high school, and my coach was just, and I was already feeling not unlucky, but I was already like, you know, the youngest person on there, and I felt like everyone was gonna just gang up on me, all the big bad high school girls. And so she's just like, I'm gonna give you the number 13. So I was like, oh well, that's indicative of how I'm feeling. But then it turned into a really awesome season and stuff. So
I'm just gonna say I was born on the 13th. So
wow, look at that. You're reading the same book as me.
Watch out, Taylor. Exactly.
Let me know
and
how.
On that note, Corinna, go find a safe space and lock your doors.
Yeah.
Benny, go take a cold shower.
I should have Taylor come with me to Dallas.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you in Dallas.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Visit ObstacleDominator.com for show notes, training, and racing resources, and leave your question for Beni and Brakken.